Hi, my name is Barbara Sanders, and this is Soul Speak. And today I wanted to just muse a little bit about fear and Merkabas. And I want to describe first the process of how I get inspired. Something comes to me, and this happened to me probably yesterday when I read a piece from Elizabeth Gilbert's email that she does weekly. And she's talking about our need to feel approved of by others, our caring what others think about us, our deep wishes to be accepted, and that the people who seem not to care at all what people think are often the people who are the deepest in fear of what other people think. And they've got this, I don't care. Uh, I'm not going to say some of the things she wrote about, but you can read her piece from yesterday's Elizabeth Gilbert email that she sends out. You can subscribe to her, I'm sure, and get those emails. I don't know if it's on Substack, but it might be. So that started to inspire me yesterday. And then I did a meditation this morning, a guided meditation with David Clements. And David Clements is one of my favorite teachers and mentors these days. Infinite Source Creations, which if you've watched any of my stuff, you'll have heard about before, but Infinite Source Creations is his website with several other meditations for free and meditations for a little bit of money. And he does such a beautiful job of channeling this wonderful message to the world, to all of us people, to the earth, Mother Earth. And so I did one of those meditations this morning. Actually, it's number 54, and you have to do some earlier meditations to get to that one. But anyway, he inspired me. And so I kept thinking about, or actually in the meditation, felt the term and the visual sense of Merkaba. And I had just written about Merkabas a couple of weeks ago, I think at end of July. I called it We as Merkabas. And I'll maybe read that during this part, but I just want to say some of what I'm thinking about first, because I don't want to just read. So all of this is very intriguing to me to think about fear. And I have a disclaimer about fear, and that's that I'm not talking about everybody's individual traumas in this life that they've been through. I'm not talking about nervousness or anxiety in particular, though certainly fear fuels nervousness and anxiety, as I've noticed in this lifetime. And Elizabeth Gilbert goes a little further than that. So let me go ahead and read a little bit, just a piece of what she wrote about this part of our embodied fear, because it really helps me, as having been a psychotherapist for all my career. It helps me realize and know better why all of us who may have needed psychotherapy in the past, and I've done my share, or we need alternative practices like yoga and meditation and healing energy practices, why we still might, besides being human, get a little anxious and distressed and tensed up and constricted at times, even when we don't have any knowledge of any antecedent to those times, like people who have panic attacks. Um, so I'm talking about fear in general, not as a specific kind of fear that we have. And then I'll also talk about Merkabas, which seems to me to be a nice container or cocoon that David Clements talks about to help us not only connect with spirit, but to connect with Mother Earth and all that flows between the two. And we are the centers of these Merkabas. If you look up Merkaba, it is spelled Merkaba, or with an H on the end. And there are different ways to say it, and there are different cultures that talk about Merkabas. And I'll read about that in a minute. But let me go ahead and start by reading just a piece of Elizabeth Gilbert and what she said yesterday. In the middle of what she was writing, she said, oh, and she's channeling her unconditional love supports, and she talks a lot as she writes letters to them and they write letters to her about unconditional love. So as she and you will hear, she's talking about these unconditional love energies that she's informed by. So she says, and we also know that all the love and approval in the world, and these are unconditional love energies talking to her. And in parentheses, it says, and you have certainly tried very hard to get all the love and approval in the world. So let's go back. And we also know that all the love and approval in the world cannot heal this wound. Social media has taught you that 200 people can show up one day in the comments to shower you with love and praise. But if one of them says that you're a stupid, lying fraud and an ugly waste of breath, you will hold on to that comment only with sharp terror, real terror. And I'll say another thing, and it's that we're just human beings, and human beings have this go on in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts, because we're human beings, we're mortals, and this is part of how we're electrically connected. And a lot of people work on their electricity so that they can calm their nervous systems down. But that's part of what they're talking about, is that our brains, or emotions too, however you want to label these parts of ourselves, and there are lots of parts of ourselves, we can hear 10 things in one day that are praiseworthy of us, and we feel so good for a moment. And then one negative will come toward us, and somehow we grab onto that and just obsess about it, or chewing cud. What is that cows do? We just chew on it and keep, cogitating and thinking about it, and we can't just let that go easily. So that's what she's about to tell about. And I'll go back to her quotation. We know the reasons too. We know that the evolutionary reasons, the existential atavistic terror of knowing that you cannot survive this planet alone. That if your cluster of hominids casts you out, you will literally die. Belong or die might be a good motto for most of human evolution. We know the desperate atom deep need to belong in order to live. This is about survival, I'm saying. Back to her. We know that almost 1,000,000 years ago, your early human ancestors faced an environmental catastrophe that almost wiped them out into extinction, bringing the population down to approximately 1,300 people. And back to me, I hadn't heard that before. I hadn't read that or heard that. I don't know if it's true, but it's an interesting concept that some environmental catastrophe brought the population down to approximately 1,300 people. Back to Elizabeth. That was all who was left on this dangerous planet. 1,300 of you. And every single one of you alive today is descended from that evolutionary bottleneck. From those 1,300 whose immediate descendants, by the way, barely made it through the next 120,000 years of glaciers, droughts, catastrophic volcanoes, and other disasters. For all that time, the total number of early humans hovered around 1,300, all of them barely making it. Excuse me. Her unconditional love energies are saying to her, do you feel the terror of that? Let's put it this way. Do you remember the terror of that? Of course you do. Every cell in your body remembers it. How did our ancestors survive? By banding together. And what would have happened, what probably did happen to anyone who was not approved of or who was exiled? Certain death. This is in you. This is in your body, in your spirit, in your collective memory. And this is why it feels like you're going to die when someone doesn't like you or approve of you. And she goes on and makes some other fabulous points. And I'm not going to go into all that at this point. But what I want to say about that is that if you believe that we embody the genetics and ancestry that we have, all accumulated through all these births and deaths that life has been, then that's pretty striking to think that we might carry within our DNA or our cells or our membranes or somewhere in us some of this fear that is catastrophic, people talk about the primitive brain and how we react primitively uh, too often, but that's how we react to terror, fear, fright. Some people say you either freeze or you run away, and some people say you start relating like women do when you're fearful like that. But there are lots of different theories about that. I just want to talk about that point of we're carrying around perhaps hundreds of thousands of years of fear generated from huge catastrophes and survival needs that none of us live with like that today. A lot of us live with current violence, a lot of us live with current rejection, some of us live with current trauma that all kind of taps into that deep well. David White, the poet, talks about deep well of grief. Well, it sounds like there's a deep well of terror also in us. So I just wanted to start out with that. About the Merkabas, in the meditation that I did with David Clements online today, that he did yesterday actually for a lot of people around the world, he talks about using our different dimensional selves and our higher self to help us in a meditation get to a relaxed state by breathing rhythmically and his words, and he's channeling from whoever he channels from, which are usually Arcturians, Pleiadians, and Syrians, and all sorts of beings, even some from Middle Earth, he calls them. So he's helping us know that we're beloved, that we are beautiful just like we are, that we are actually love source intelligence ourselves. It's not just something out there, up there, or away from us. We are that, but that we have so many barriers and fortresses and blocks inside us that we need to get rid of some of the debris, some of the parts of ourselves that are conditioned, patterned rigidly, and that we can let go of now if we can get into some sort of state uh, through meditation or other types of alternative practices to get into a state of realizing in a deep, maybe not conscious way that we don't need to hold on to these things, that though they helped us in the past, now harm us by carrying them on, whether it's our parents' belief systems, if it's our mother's fear or our father's, whatever, and all those ancestors before them that we don't even know about, that sometimes we have these parts of ourselves that we don't understand. We don't even need to understand them sometimes, but we can let them, as David Clements talks about, which I love, is be lifted off of us by our resources, our supports, our spirit guides, whatever you want to call them. Some people call that God, some people call it goddesses of all sorts. Some people, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, all of those kinds of guides and supports in these meditations of David Clements can help us decrease. In fact, he talks about them helping us dissolve and lift off of us some of these characteristics, patterns, traits, behaviors, thoughts, feelings that no longer serve us well and that we can release now to let them go back to where they came from. He even in this last 54 meditation talks about at the end going down into Mother Earth. This is all imaginative, right? Suspension of disbelief. This is imaginative, not linear, logical work. But going down into Mother Earth, approaching her core. But as we go down there, noticing the pockets of energy that are either dark or distressed or negative energies that Mother Earth herself has contained all these years. And for us to do a process whereby she can also be lift things, those energies can be lifted out of her, off of her, so that she can heal as well as us. So that's one really important thing to help our earth heal as well as ourselves. So I'll say all that right now. Okay. let me move on to Merkabas. So when he talks about after rhythmic breathing, I almost said breathing, anyway, uh, then he pictures, or we picture, a cocoon, like being a dragonfly, a larva in water, or being in a cocoon of a butterfly, but being in some sort of cocoon in the womb of our mothers, an amniotic sac, some sort of cocoon that we're in to protect us, to help us grow and be nurtured. And then in that way, we can go even into more multidimensional places and spaces and feel the energies that are assisting us, connect with those energies that help us heal. And I'm losing my train of thought because there was something more important than that. So anyway, in this cocoon today, that was it. I experienced a Merkaba around me. Usually I have a sort of web of cocoon of bright light or darkness or something, but today it was a Merkaba. And my dog is barking. I hope you don't hear her. A Merkaba is like a pyramid, but multi-dimensional, the base of the pyramid, and then another pyramid below it. And I'm going to read you my poem about that so we can talk about that more easily, or I can talk about that and you can listen. Let me go ahead and do that. This is the poem I wrote a few weeks ago. So I called it We, as Merkabas. The shape of a triangle, so perfectly grounded, centered, growing widely, seeking spirit, dancing with divine, creating an antenna, pointing toward the skies. Excuse me, my dog has run off now. That's good. Let me go back and start again. The shape of a triangle, perfectly grounded, centered, growing widely at its base, seeking spirit, dancing with the divine, creating an antenna, pointing toward the skies, connecting deeply and solidly. So for this part, I imagine a pyramid. The pyramids, built by miracles of vision and hard labor, magnificent and splendid in their embodiment of a simple triangle, adding dimensions and function. Imagine that within the pyramid, another triangle entwines within the first triangle, this one pointing downward toward the core of Mother Earth, seeking her wisdom. A Merkaba comes to mind, a heavily laden term, weighty and profound. Triangles and pyramids traveling around and around, centripetal and centrifugal forces creating a star with a sturdy, unadulterated center. The Merkaba, a figure of sacred geometry, composed of two interlocking tetrahedrons, representing the union of spirit and body, no small matter. The two tetrahedrons, rotate in opposite directions, perhaps carrying the soul through the widening gyre, the spinning spire of divine mysteries. Some say the Merkaba is a chariot for travel, transporting body and mind into different dimensions and states of being. Some don't say anything at all. Some say it's a symbol of ascension, expansion of consciousness, transformative, enhancing life's energies. What say you? We are as Merkabas, after all. We, human beings, is what I'm talking about. We are the vehicles, the networks, the matrix, the grid, and the web linking all of us to each other and to spirit united. And I'll pause from the poem for a second and say, as my dog is here, trees, dogs, rocks, any living beings on this earth, below or below, I'm not talking well today, below or above, all around us, everywhere, are also, if we are Merkabas, they are also vehicles. As we interconnect, we receive spiritual infusions and physical activations, balancing polarities and heartfelt harmonies, sprinkling bright light throughout the multiverses, alone and when we gather together. We are devoted to aspiration, awakening, and ascension, all of which are flowing toward us at the speed of light with vibration, resonance, and coherence. We breathe gently, knowing how the impact occurs while we live our lives just as we are, we as Merkabas. And I want to say something about my writing this. When I imagined and wrote that we know how the impact occurs, I did imagine a sort of a catastrophic boom, something hitting us, and I just hit my head on the wall, a boom kind of thing. But the fact is, my guess is, or my hope is that when those kinds of impacts happen, as we receive energies, they're not always catastrophic, first of all. They can be gentle, warm, they can be cool and loving, certainly. They can be that unconditional love that Elizabeth Gilbert talks about, and how not all, many religions talk about unconditional love, God's love, Goddess's love. That all of that coming into us can be gentle, does not have to be impactful like a catastrophe. Um, so that's why I wrote it this way. We breathe gently, knowing how the impact occurs while we live our lives just as we are, because that's what we can do, is to live our lives just as we are. Let me put that poem away so I can talk better. I am one who has done lots of things in the last several years, from creative work like painting, and I paint a lot of spirals and abstractly. Tammy Roth helped me with learning to paint in multi-dimensional ways. I also have written a lot. Being an English major from college, I've always been a writer, and I've loved that. Now I'm doing these videos, which I'm really enjoying, because with writing, I'm trying to perfect. And though it's inspired, I think, from outside of me, it comes into me and I write it, and then I want to perfect it, edit it, put a pretty picture with it or an interesting picture with it. But with talking, which I've never done professionally much at all, besides working with one-to-one clients, groups of people, small groups of people, usually couples, families. I was always a little too anxious or nervous to be a professional speaker. I would overplan what I thought was overplanning, and I wanted to be able to even almost read what I wrote, because I wanted it all planned out, because I needed to be in control. Big thing on me on earth for me was having been a little kid, baby, growing up like all of us did. We were not in control then. We were dependent on others. Part of that was wonderful, and part of that got us into some troubles. If we were rejected or exiled, as Elizabeth Gilbert talked about, we could die. So we grew up with as these vulnerable, fragile little beings, and then we grew to learn how to control our lives, whether it be with siblings, parents, strangers, educational systems, jobs, careers. We learned how to manipulate our environments. And I don't always think of manipulation as a negative term, but we needed to do that, not only to survive anymore, but to thrive, to find a career for ourselves if we wanted a career, to find ourselves being the best mother we could be, to be the best partner we could be with someone. Manipulation is something about strategy, and it's about how to get what we want or what we need for ourselves in the most graceful, compassionate, loving way possible while we live on this earth full of wildfires, wars, flooding, and disasters that do continue today. Maybe not in your local area or my local area, but all around us, with devastating consequences. Just so much around the world. We might be so glad we're so privileged not to live inside some of those wildfires and floods and wars, but we still, it does impact us, since I do believe we're all connected, we're all one in some way, all the beings, all the life on this earth. And so when one person gets hurt, another person has some sort of energetic effect, not directly correlated immediately, but as they say, the ripples go out. And they've done studies and research about ripples in oceans and airs and tsunamis and all sorts of things, and wildfires, which connect, and then devastate. Or connect, and revive and rebirth and bring in new energies that once the wildfires have cleared, the floods have cleared the ground, sometimes new life can come forward. Not always, but sometimes new life comes forward. I'm not going to say that about war. I don't know enough about war. I know it is horrible and devastating and hurts people, even when our leaders try to tell us that it is helpful to us in some ways. I have grown up in nonviolent traditions and nonviolent educational systems, even though I, as a human being myself, contain violence. I have hurt people, as we all have. I might put on my best behavior so as I look good or look acceptable or treat people well. But every now and then, something comes out that's inside there, hidden away or jailed, that when enough crisis or stress or trauma occurs can come out. And we all have the ability to be violent. I do believe that. And it's not, though, and that's why I'm talking today, not just about controlling our behaviors or our thoughts or feelings. Even though I don't think feelings can be controlled, I think they are like the weather, they come and go. And what we can do is let them pass through without all the blocks and the stuckness. When they get inside us, they can make us sick or violent or crazy or depressed. But if we can find ways to let them flow through us, like the weather, they move on, even though we learn from, and we need to learn from our feelings, thoughts, and beliefs, because they're there, and we learn a lot about ourselves from noticing them, becoming aware of them, and only then understand them, maybe, not always understanding them, but learning to manage them better than we have before, so that we don't hurt ourselves or other people. I'm going on and on, so I think that I would like to stop soon and hear your comments. You can subscribe for free on this YouTube channel, Sacred Metamorphoses and Soul Speak. This is a certainly bigger, expansive, amazing set of questions that I'm talking about today. And I appreciate your listening, and feel free to forward this on to others. Again, I'm Barbara Sanders. If you want to find me online, my website is sacred-transformation.com. And I look forward to talking with you again, and I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much, and be with your fear. See if we can release some of our fears and breathe through them so that we can be our best selves for ourselves and for the whole world and for Mother Earth and for all human beings and all other living beings in it. Bye.